Welcome back to the show. I'm so happy you are here. I need a little coffee upcharge just before we start. Okay. So we talked about time on one of the episodes earlier, and I want to expand on that because I think it's another theme that is happening and something that we can continue to start to play with. And you see it more as malleable rather than linear and fixed. And yeah, if you're curious of like where we went to in that conversation, you can go ahead and go listen to that other episode. But I want to talk about an experience I had of time. Actually, it's kind of several experiences within the same weekend, and it's very interesting. Have you ever felt like time is either moving too fast or it goes by really fast? The day goes by really fast, or it goes by the opposite, really slow, really dragged out. And you're like, when will this day ever end? And we can sometimes experience that just because we think like, oh, that's just our experience. And like time is just still moving at the same pace. But it's actually not true. And we have the ability to stretch out, to elongate, to lengthen, or quicken that time. And so does other people. And it's been talked about by different channelers too, of how this information comes through, of like people manipulating the time to speed the nights up, speed the days up, all these things. But that will be for another topic and a different discussion. This is more about how we can personally connect to our own relationship with time and stretch or quicken the time for us in our day-to-day life, and actually see if we can start to play with this. And I didn't realize until actually I talked a lot about time. And I was having this conversation with this really lovely lady that I was getting a colonic done by. And we talked about time, and I described to her this situation that had happened when I was flying back from San Diego to St. Louis. And I was like, whoa, this is another interpretation of time, how I experienced it. So I want to share that with you. But she was also wanting to like tap into like, how can I stretch time out? Like, how can I make it go by slower and not like speed up as we get older? Because those when we think about like the very strong narratives that have been told to us over and over, especially about like aging, time, like life, like those like cliche things that we hear. Those are the things that you want to kind of dive in and try to break apart to be like, is that actually true? Or is this just told to me over and over so I believe that it is true? And so that's one of the things that I think about time. And when we say like, oh, when as you get older, time goes by faster. Why is that a known thing? Like, why is that a phrase? And can we reverse that? Can we start to do things a little bit differently? Can we slow the time? And so I'll talk about the experience. I was going, it was the day that I was leaving, and I had to be at the airport. My flight left at, what was it? 11:50, I think. And I'm one of those people that like love to get to the airport early, like 2 hours early at least, so I can go get a coffee, hang out, not feel rushed. Like I like enough time in between the things that I do. That's like even when I'm like going to work, when I have to be somewhere, when I'm waking up, I love like having the slow time to like not rush to be somewhere. And so that was my intention. I was going to leave at, 10, or I think 10 was my game plan. And so I went, packed up, checked out of my hotel, and I was like, I'll just go grab breakfast at the hotel, and eat real quick and then take my Uber. And then as I go into the breakfast in the restaurant, I see one of the girls that I went to this event with. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'll join you for breakfast. So we eat breakfast, we're chatting, and, losing track of time, eat breakfast, and we're having this great conversation, and I'm married to her, she's married to me, we're like having these ahas equally, and lose track of what time I wanted to leave. And so we look down at the clock and it's like already 10:30, and we're like, we need to get to the airport. And so called the Uber. We it was like only a like 10-15 minute drive. So like we get to the airport. I look at the time and I'm like, shit, this is like, I'm cutting this close for myself. Like I like to give myself more time. And so I started to get panicked about it. And then I thought to myself in my head, we're not going to stress about how much time we have. We have plenty of time. We'll get there with plenty of time. We're going to just anchor into that and we're not going to look at the clock. Like this is going to be fine. We're going to breeze through it. We're going to check in. We're going to check our bags. So I mentally was like preparing myself with this, and I was mentally like thinking this to myself. And my friend that we went to the airport with, she didn't have to check her bag. She already had a carry-on. So I felt her being like ready to just get into the line. So I was like, you know what? You just go ahead. You go into the security line, and I will meet you in the terminal, because we were ironically both flying into Austin, where she was based and where I had a layover. And so we were on the same flight, same terminal. So I was like, you go ahead. So then I get in line. Ended up being a pretty long line to check your bag. And so I'm waiting in line. I'm, still thinking about it. I've got plenty of time. We're not stressing. Go through, check my bag, and then I see her down the line in the security line of like, to go in. And so I was like, okay, so I'm not too far off, but she's quite down there. She's like many people ahead of me. So I'm going through the line, and I'm going through the security line, and I lose track of her, and don't know where she went. I'm in, there's, how there's like different rows and stuff. So I like just go into the row that seems like it's the most flow. And so then I'm doing my thing. I'm going through security, and then I get out of security, still don't see her. I'm like putting on my shoes and my jacket and stuff like that. And then I'm like, I don't know, I just had a hunch to like turn around instead of go for the stairs. So like I turn around, and there she is waiting for her bag. And she turns to me, and then I look at her, and she was like, how are you ahead of me? Like, like literally both of us are like, what's going on? She's like, how the hell are you in front of me? This makes no sense. Like, I was so far ahead of you. I left before you. Like, how are you already out of the line, ready to go, and I'm still waiting for my bag? And I just laugh, because I have these like experiences often, and so often that like they just don't seem abnormal to me, because it's like a normal thing, especially when I travel. I have a lot of ease. Sometimes, not always. There are times that I have resistance for different reasons, that lead us to other places. But on average, I have a lot of ease when it comes to travel and traveling and making things and stuff. And that is part of my like soul magic. That's part of my mission. Like I'm supposed to be in different locations, picking up codes, dropping codes, travel and moving and all that kind of stuff is like a very, on that side of things is very in alignment for me. So I think that is on my side, in my favor. And so I just kind of laugh, because I'm like, oh, this is like not a abnormal thing for me when I travel. And she just like couldn't let it go. Just like, there's no way that you could have gotten in front of me. Like, no way. Like, what happened? And so we were talking about time, and then I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I did set a pretty strong intention of like, it's going to be easy. We're going to get there on time. We got plenty of time. We're not going to worry about it. And it was like one of those quite literal representations, instead of like, oh, I experienced time, like, oh, the day felt like it was really long. It felt like, feelings are one thing, like, and feelings are valid. I think they're very important in that experience of time and how we can stretch into lengthening it. But it was such a physical representation on how I kind of like slipped through the time, and like moved through it differently than another person. And I was like, whoa, this is actually one of those like literal experiences, representation of how we can move through time differently to one another. And yeah, I just had to share this because then it came up to me yesterday when me and this practitioner was like talking about time. Like I'm in mid colonic, and we were talking about all this good stuff because I was talking to her about my podcast and telling her about this experience, and she was like, man, yeah, I really wanted to figure out how I could stretch time. And then what we have received from different channelings and messages of like being in such the present moment in the now helps us get into that stretching of time. And I think that's why a lot of things are designed around us to take us out of the now into the future, into the past, into, getting lost of distraction and all that distraction energy and stuff of like not being fully present. Like it sometimes could be a struggle throughout the day being like, wait, when was there a time that I was fully present in what I was doing? And then that's when I feel like the day can just fly by. It was like a blur. You can't really remember. And I've even felt like years have gone by or a year had gone by and be like, wait, what did I do? Like, where did I go? Like, it just kind of like becomes a blur. And I think when things become a blur, it's like we're not soaking that up in the real time of the present now, the only time that ever really exists in the now. Like it's all happening now, past, present, future, other timelines, all of it is in this now moment that our human brains just can't wrap our brains around. You're like, but I keep getting older. This was in the past. This will happen in the future. How is time not existent? And we can just really trip ourselves up with that. So I think the first step is to allowing yourself to like play in the game of like, if time was malleable, if I could stretch time, if I could slow time, if I could speed up time, what would that look like? What would that feel like? When would I want to do this? How can I be more present in these moments? And playing with that is the beginning of loosening the grip of what we think things to be true. And you're like, wait, maybe what I thought was true isn't actually true. And what if this truth is this truth? And then this truth becomes this truth. So it's just being more malleable and flexible of what you believe to be true about the things that we're told. Like, how do we know? Because we were told, because of our experience. What if we start having different experiences? Will that then question what we were told? Something interesting to think about. And then my other experience of time in that same weekend in San Diego, the moment that I stepped off that plane, the time had slowed. Like I was there for 5 days. I literally felt like I was there for weeks. I'm not even kidding you. And the day before the event, I had spent a whole day with my aunt and my grandma, and we literally had like 24 hours together. And we had one day, and everything that we were able to fit in that day, we went to crystal shops, we went, shopping, we roamed around, we had a late brunch, they picked me up from the airport, we went to dinner, like then we had a whole tarot card afternoon, we lounged and had tea for hours, like we got ready like a couple of times, and then we went out to, I don't know if I said we went out to dinner, and then I went dancing, and it was just like so much within a day where it like didn't logically make sense that we were able to do everything that we did in that day. Like it literally felt like we had a 3-day weekend within one 24-hour period. And then the rest of the weekend was the same way. It just felt so stretched out because I was just so present. And I think that other people had thought that too, but I couldn't, I was just so like immersed in where I was. Like I didn't text other people that were other places. Like, I didn't take a whole lot of photos. I took a few. Like I was just so present with who I was with what conversation I was having. And that allowed me, I think, to tap more into that stretching of time. And the event had something to do with that too. And my intention of this jump spot, I think, elongated in the previous episode, if you'll listen to, where I talk about the jump spot, but it elongated this feeling of presence with me there, and it helped me stretch time. So that's that malleable story. Like, and then if we were able to be more working with this energy flow and kind of be able to not manipulate it, but work with it and know that it's more malleable for us and with us and be a part of this like coexisting energy. You know how like then when you become aware of your body, when you become aware of your energy field, you can start to work with your energy field and you work with your body. You can, start to have a relationship with the body, with your energy field. And then you start to have a relationship with the quantum field. And then what if that also is then a relationship with like the time field? I don't even know if that's a thing. Like is time a field? Just this is just coming to me now. But that's the way that I am like seeing it come through and seeing how we can have these different relationships with these different parts of us that feel separate from us, but that aren't, because we're all connected and everything is one and in oneness. But like as we start to work with it and be aware of it, then we have this different relationship that comes about it. So yeah, food for thought there. See if you can bring more presence to your life. And in that presence, does time start to slow? Like kids, like you remember like being a kid where the days felt so long and the summer felt so long because like all you knew as a kid was right in front of you. And that's literally because our brains were just like couldn't think of anything else. They're not developed to think about all these things. But like tapping back into that, and even if you have kids, like watching them see how they move through time, see how that they're in the moment, and how can you also jump into that, get into that, be a part of that instead of trying to get them out of it. How can you get into it too? So yeah, more conversations on time definitely will be keep coming up, I think, for us to be able to figure out how to move more into working with time and not be against it. So I think that concludes for this episode. I hope that stay alien, get weird, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a great day.